The Star Inn at Harome on the edge of the North York Moors. It's a pub built in the 1300s with 21st century cuisine. Chef Andrew Pern says it's just one of thousands of restaurants in Britain that celebrate locally produced food, some of which is game.
Glorious 12th, people like traditional roast grouse. So it is, with the breadcrumbs, red currant jelly, the watercress, making a parfait out of the offal and things. So it's very much a sort of sense of tradition really with the grouse, to be honest. The attraction of selling local game meat is, it sort of goes with the area. The cuisine terroir, if you like, the French have this famous sort of food of their region. Where we are here on the edge of the North Yorkshire Moors, local estates all around us. I think the food that we cook, the local game, especially this time of year, autumn, winter time, we let the seasons write our menus. The game, obviously, from grouse from up on the top of the moors here at Brandesdale, through to partridge, pheasant, local venison from the local estates. It's fantastic, and I think it's sort of that local community, that local sort of amateur stroke professional network of suppliers that we've got. They're here, they come and knock on our door, we do a bit of bartering. People love to see the game hanging by the kitchen door. It's very old English, and in a 14th century thatched pub like we have, I think it definitely fits the bill, and that's what people come for.
The menu may be a bit funky for this neck of the woods, but the emphasis is freshness.
I don't want to ring up a game dealer or a butcher from, another county or from down south and get something that arrives in a vac pack, or it's been cling filmed to death. If it's in the feather, it can be hung for longer. We've got that period of when it's been shot, literally arriving here when it's still warm, and we can hang it, or not, as our customers demand, really.
This could all be about to change. At the moment, the two suppliers of game to the end consumer are registered food businesses such as approved game handling establishments, or game dealers as we call them, and unregistered food businesses such as pubs and some butchers. The Food Standards Agency is mulling new rules that could see an end to centuries of tradition, where gamekeepers, landowners and shooters barter with bar owners unless they are approved. In the interests of traceability, the civil servants want it vac pack only from now on.
The clamping down of a thread in a shed, as we game dealers rather sniffily call them, that's going to be clamped down upon. I don't think that an awful lot of threads in sheds realise that what they're doing is frequently not actually permitted anyway. And I don't think that an awful lot of customers realise that they're putting their businesses slightly at risk by not actually doing the full due diligence on it.
A world away, or maybe about an hour or so from Andrew's restaurant, are the streets of Middlesbrough. John Cavana has been feeding street sleepers and people with problems there for 4 years.
We've gone onto the street where people are actually sleeping in doorways on an evening, cold evenings. They're sleeping behind the shops, behind wheelie bins with cockroaches and rats running around. And we'd go out there and we'd give them a warm meal. Over the past couple of years, we've gone over 1,000 hot meals to the homeless people.
John prepares food for the homeless from his own kitchen.
There's our mincing machine, sausage making machine, and what we've got there is some pheasant breast minced up with some cranberry, some orange and some cheese made into a sausage roll. Tasty, delicious. Once you've minced it, the world's your oyster. You can make many, many different things, like you say, your lasagnas, your bolognese, your sausage meat, your burger meat, anything that you'd put your minced lamb in, or your minced beef or your minced pork in. Change it with a minced game meat. The idea with the sausage rolls is that we can make them, and when we go and feed the homeless on the streets, it's something that they associate, it's something that they're happy to have. It hasn't come from our main sausage roll makers like Ginsters or Greggs, it's come from us, but they can associate it and they're quite happy to tuck in and try it.
Based on a recent FSA consultation, could Andrew and John's work be affected by a proposed clampdown on who can give or sell game to whom?
The proposal is that the current wording around what a shoot can do with feathered game is going to be tightened up significantly. So at the moment, the wording refers to family and friends, which allows quite a lot of latitude in terms of how you interpret friends, which is what has facilitated game being passed into restaurants and what have you, and local pubs and that sort of thing. Off the top of my head, the language in the current proposal, still out of consultation, tightens that up to immediate household. if you want to do more than give birds in the feather, so you're actually going to start processing, then you will definitely need to, you will then trigger various bits of FSA regulation. Arguably, that's always been the case. It's just the language is being tightened up significantly to make sure the various loopholes get closed down.
For them to suddenly put restrictions on me and say that I have to have an added expense and I have to have an inspection, I have to have a certificate and I have to buy from a certain source, it would stop me from being able to do what I do. I wouldn't be able to go out and feed the people on the streets. We're very, very generously supported by the local estates. Most of the gamekeepers, if I said to them, is there any chance I could have, whether that be a rabbit, a hare, a deer, grouse, pheasant, partridge, wildfowl, they'd happily give me that to process it, knowing that somebody, the end user, is in need of the food.
My parents came here in 1969 when it was a very small village inn, and it's progressed into a 120-seater restaurant in the building we sat now, and then in the other end of the building, which was another restaurant, we're now converting into a coffee shop and a village store to sell local produce, game included, local game. You can buy it either in the feather or out the feather. We have our own little shoot, and there's 4 of us in it. And the game that we shoot, we share out, and everything's used. We give the beaters a free to take anything they want.
John and Ginger fear that big food businesses are not only dictating what people eat, they are over-influencing government policy.
When I went to school, I had to do home economics. And the home economics is a great science that we've taken away from the schools, because you weigh things, you measure things. You're creating a recipe using chemicals. We're using flours and salts and peppers and spices. We're putting all that together, and that gives us the common sense to put it in the oven. Is it cooked properly? And we bring it out. We've taken a lot of them things out of the school now, so we're taking away the common sense. So people expect to be able to get the meal, remove the cellophane, put it in for 20 minutes, and that's it. Nobody's actually preparing the food and adding their own bit of salt and their own bit of flavouring, the spices, and coming up with something that's unique and tasty.
You know, go and speak to your butcher and see what's nice, what's good, what's in season. You know, you could feed your family on a brace of pheasants for a few days.
I think maintaining that balance between the passion for eating locally, the wild harvest, sustainability, which is it's so key to the messaging around game, trying to keep that in place whilst accepting that we are, for better or for worse, a modern 21st century food producing sector, is going to be the challenge. I think we need to accept that we are a food producing sector and act accordingly, and unfortunately that is going to mean embracing some level of additional regulation along the way.
It would just take out the sort of the fun of the area and the sense of being, I think, for the local farmers, and that sort of tradition of the time of year, you know, the meeting of people. It's very much a sort of community thing as well, you know, the social side of the local shoot, and it's the coming together, you know, of generations and whatever, and I think that's very much the locality and where it should definitely stay.
The Food Standards Agency refused to confirm that food businesses are going to be dropped in the new year. They referred us to the latest consultation on the supply of wild game, brought in this year to help the UK comply with EU rules. And there's a link to that in the description below.